Hello there, world of tankers. Welcome to the channel. I'm your host, Droodles Blitz, and in today's video, I'll be breaking into 3 tanks that'll be coming into Blitz over the next upcoming months. These vehicles are, well, actually pretty fun looking, and I'll be sharing everything you're going to want to know about them today. So by the time you're done watching today's video, hope you'll learn a thing or two. Let me know which of the 3 tanks you're most excited for, if you change anything on them. And with that being said, also consider smashing the subscribe button because it helps a lot to obviously get videos out like this. So let's start off with this, the AMX ELC 901. As we can clearly tell, this is a light tank, a French light tank. What you might not have expected for this to be a tier 8. Yes, indeed, a tier 8 light. It's actually a pretty fun looking tank. Now, armor-wise, it's terrible. If we get a tank which has decent high explosive pen like the Sheridan, as we can see, 90 mils, which is the same as an ISU or a RHM, yeah, hull armor is only 56 millimeters thick. The turret's also terrible. So armor-wise, just expect to be penned like everywhere on this tank and even be high explosive penned. But let's see if the other characteristics this vehicle has make up for it. Starting off, let's fully equip it. So we're going to put on all of these things here. Boom, boom, boom. Enhanced gunlaying drive, calibrated shells, and there you go. Vehicle is now properly equipped. So we have 2,160 damage per minute. It's all right. I'm not going to say it's anything amazing, but it's decent levels of DPM, especially because you have to remember this is an autoloader, a 2-shot. It is able to deal 440 damage in a matter of 2.5 seconds due to the intra-clip. So its base damage is 220, and you have 2 separate shells. Think of this vehicle as a Bosch-Chatillon Barrasque. Now here's something that's very interesting, which you might not have noticed. This vehicle features improved vertical stabilizers. So you have the option of camo net or improved vertical stabilizers. Now what V-Stabs does for this vehicle is it gives you 6 degrees of gun depression or 9 degrees of gun depression. And we can actually see that here. So this over the front is 7 degrees of gun depression. And then over the sides, it's 9. And you can see that. It goes a little bit less to a little bit more. You can actually see at the top here, if this stupid exit full screen, blah, 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 when that goes away. We can see over the front here, 7 degrees, and over the sides, it's 9. Now, if you remove vertical stabilizers and you put on camo net, you're going to notice that over the sides, it's now 6, but over the front, it's still 7. So you're only losing gun depression over the sides. But let's be honest, you're going to be running the gun depression. Why would you run camo net, which only gives you a 4% camo boost? So I think that's a fairly cut and dry thing. Why Wargaming couldn't just give it, I don't know, better gun depression? A little weird. We'll have to take a look at the view range of this vehicle as well and see if they adjusted that or not. But point being, it's got an interesting mechanic there. When it comes to the accuracy, it's pretty average. I mean, the aiming time's great. The aiming time's only 1.5 seconds, as we can see here. But to make up for the aiming time, its on-movement dispersion is pretty mediocre. So it's something else to keep in mind. It's fairly accurate, but nothing insane. I mean, at the end of the day, 0.324, pretty mid, especially for only a 220 damage shot vehicle. So, When it comes to the maneuverability, goes 65, reverses at 24, which makes it fairly fast. I'm not going to say it's the fastest, because we can see when it comes to its terrain resistances, it's awful. It's actually one of the slower light tanks, but it's still a light tank. Even the slowest light tank is still fast. It's way faster than a medium, so really no problems there. Point being, the tank has a lot of capabilities, some good, some bad. It actually looks pretty well balanced, and the major advantage of this vehicle is the camo. For example, a Bosch-Chatillon Barrasque has 41% camo while sitting still, but it has worse on move. The Barrasque's on move is only 25%. This is a light tank, so it has the same on movement camo. So it's going to allow this vehicle to get away with very, very sneaky maneuvers, and because it's so small, it's basically going to be like an ELC even 90. If any of you don't know what that is, just think of a little Beetle Bugler. Either way, it looks pretty fun. I am interested to see the view range, if that's listed here. I mean, I know it's listed here, but sometimes it's hard to find where the vehicle's view range might be. An easy way to do this, VIEW, and there you go, view range. 269 meters. Let's compare that level of view range to the Barrasque, for example. I think that'll be an easy way to compare. The Bosch-Chatillon Barrasque has 294. So yeah, big different disadvantage there. And that's because of the fact you're missing this. So a lot of the other light tanks are going to have much more view range than this vehicle, including a vehicle like the Bosch-Chatillon Barrasque. But, as I said, there's going to be some big advantages for this light tank. We can see the camouflage on move of the Brask is only 25%. And that's still the best for a medium, but doesn't matter. I think the ELC is actually going to be really fun. I think it looks pretty balanced, and I have no complaints about it. You guys can let me know your personal feelings, comments, and opinions down below. This is the Type 59 SPC. Looks sick. This is actually like real reflective gold. Kind of reminds me of the 121B camo. Really, really cool. Now what we're actually going to do is we're going to compare this vehicle to the Type 59, which we already know and love in the game, because I feel like a vehicle called the Type 59 should be compared to another Type 59. Let's put on calibrated shells, enhanced gun lane drive, boom, 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 and then apply to all. So both vehicles have the exact same equipment. Let's zoom in here so we can get a good idea of the stats. So let's start off with the differences and the similarities. We can see the Type 59 has 7% more damage per minute. It's about 150 more. That is actually quite a noticeable amount, and will give the Type 59, the one that we already have in the game, quite a bit of advantage. The SPC's advantage is in alpha. We can see it has 7% more alpha. I see what Wargaming did here. They said let's give one 7% more alpha and one 7% more DPM. Which one's better? Well, I think the DPM might be a better choice, but you'll see why in a moment. Pen-wise, we can see the Type 59 has more by about 3%. And while the gold pen on the SPC looks better, you have to remember that this is heat and this is APCR. Personally, I would rather have 253 mils of APCR premium than 260 mils of gold heat. And the reason why is because heat does not cut through spaced armor, and it doesn't have shell normalization. So realistically, the Type 59 SPC has worse pen. Weirdly enough, even though it has more alpha, it also has worse high explosive pen by 5%. So, yeah, so far the gun's not really doing a great job. All right, let's move on down a little bit and see what else we got here. Shell velocity is worse on the SPC. Shell capacity is higher, which is interesting because it does have more damage per shot. Now, the big advantage for the SPC is the gun handling. While the base dispersion is slightly worse, not really a big noticeable amount, but look at the aiming time and on-movement dispersion. 20% better on move for the SPC and aiming time. We can see both of those values right here. So that means that the SPC, even though it has more alpha, is going to be able to aim in quite a bit faster, which might make up for that DPM disadvantage. So that's something to keep in mind. Rest of the values, as we can see, are about the same. Top speed-wise, the SPC goes 54 instead of 56. Its engine power is better, but the actual power to weight is much worse effectively, and that is because of the terrain resistances, 19.5 versus 15.8. Armor-wise, I should mention both of these vehicles are the exact same. Camo-wise, both of these vehicles are the exact same. So, in other words, the SPC is a worse Type 59. And the major reason why is because it does not get the special mechanic the Type 59 does. Currently, the SPC does not have adaptive concealment, but the Type 59 has adaptive concealment. What that means is when you're playing the Type 59, you have the ability to get unspotted 3 seconds faster, 7 instead of the normal 10, and you have the ability to see who spotted you. That's a huge advantage, and at that point, when we take a look at the characteristics here, the Type 59 is faster, has better armor, or sorry, the same armor, but it's just, there's not enough of an advantage for the SPC. Maybe give it 340 alpha per shot and give it the same DPM, and I'll be like, oh yeah, I really like that. But right now, I don't see a reason to play the SPC when the base Type 59 exists, and really the only disadvantage is a little bit worse aiming time, and that's it really, and a little bit less alpha, but I'd rather have the DPM and everything else. You can let me know your personal feelings, but I already messaged the CC manager and said, hey, I think that you guys should buff the SPC a bit. With that being said, we arrive to the final vehicle in today's video, and that is the Chieftain Prototype, which we can see right here. Chieftain Proto is basically a Chieftain Mark 6 a tier lower. It's obviously got worse DPM in some areas, but we'll take a look at what we got going. First of all, let's see the armor. Armor-wise, the upper plate, very strong, just like the Chieftain Mark 6. You're not going to pen this, even if we got out a vehicle that fires like super high pen, E6 levels. I mean, look at that armor. I mean, upper plate, you can. It's upwards of 340, but I mean, that's still really, really strong armor. If you're using the gun depression, there's no way you're going to cut through that upper plate. Now, the turret, as we can see, does have some weaknesses. On flat ground, it's pretty good, honestly. It's a lot stronger than the Chieftain Mark 6 turret. But the problem is that you still have the, well, a big weakness, and that is right here. Just shoot right next to the gun. If you hit, it's only about 240 thick. So this vehicle does have weaknesses. It also does have a hatch, as we can see. But honestly, if we do a quick comparison of the Chieftain Proto versus the Chieftain Mark 6, you're going to notice that, honestly, I'd say the Chieftain Mark 6 turret is weaker, especially because it's a higher tier. This is the Chieftain Mark 6, and let's get, again, the same vehicle, the T95E6, and let's load gold, and then put on Cali. So look at the difference here. I mean, sure, hull down, it's pretty strong. Definitely a lot stronger hull down. But first of all, that hatch is much larger and much easier to hit. And look at the turret. You got all these goofy weak spots, and these actually do count as weak spots. Personally, I'd say that the Chieftain Mark 6 turret is quite a bit weaker than the Chieftain Proto. We can see the upper plate's the same for both vehicles, so I don't know. Personally, I'd just say that I'd say the Chieftain Proto has better armor tier for tier. Not only that, but the hull down capabilities are going to be super, super good on this vehicle. Imagine aiming it on this in like a tier 8. Like, where do you pen it? That's it. That's your only weak spot, so you better hit it. Let's take a look at the statistics. Once again, let's fully equip the vehicle. Calibrated shells, enhanced gun lane drive, refined gun, boom, boom, boom. And there you go, the vehicle's fully equipped. So DPM-wise, 2,500. That ranks it 9th out of the 36 heavies in tier 9. It's pretty good. And it's actually really, really solid. No complaints there about the DPM. Sure, it's not... When I tested it back, 4 or 5 months ago, the vehicle had like 2,900 DPM, 2,800. They nerfed it. But I can tell you the vehicle was incredibly overpowered at the time, so I have no complaints about the vehicle actually being nerfed in that regard. 2,500 DPM is plenty. When it comes to the pen, it's 273 on the standard, which is really nice. It is APCR, but it's still good pen. And the gold is also APCR 326. It's definitely a bit on the lower side. If you look at something like a Conqueror, for example, it has upwards of 340 millimeters of APCR premium. Even vehicles like the Mouse and the Woishin have 326 as well, and those vehicles do not have good premium pen. So this is basically the lowest gold pen you're going to find for a tier 9 heavy, but it makes sense because you can't have everything, as you're going to see. So let's continue down the road here. What else are we working with? Well, it's got Hesh, 120 mils a pen, and it does 515 damage, giving it a whopping, wow, 3,200 DPM. Yeah, this thing's Hesh output is crazy. You definitely do not want to mess with this vehicle when it's loading high explosive. The shell velocity is insanely fast. It's 1372 on both the gold and the standard. Now, the HE is really bad shell velocity, just like the OG Chieftain, so do keep that in mind. Dispersion at 100 meters, really good. It's one of the most accurate guns. We can see its base dispersion is 0.308, so it's super accurate. Its on-movement dispersion is fantastic. So even though the aiming time's pretty poor, it has overall one of the best. I mean, look at the gun values. It's one of the best guns when it comes to accuracy and all of that. It has 10 degrees of gun depression, making it incredibly flexible, and the vehicle's fast, reaches a top speed of 42, reverses at 15, and it has a pretty solid power to weight ratio, 15.4 on hard terrain, and it's not great on medium, but it's definitely not awful at 11.8. In general, it's a really, really solid tank, as we can see. I mean, it's got super good camo, it's got an incredibly solid gun, and it's got good armor. It's the jack of all trades when it comes to heavies. This is definitely a tank you are going to want to keep an eye out for when it gets released. I mean, it's just so good, and I will be very excited to get my hands on this vehicle. So let me know in the comments what you guys think about this tank. I think it looks really, really fun, though, and this is definitely the most exciting for me out of the three, although I do think that the ELC will also be pretty exciting. So, hopefully you enjoyed today's video. As always, if you'd like to see more content like this, please consider smashing that subscribe button down below, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye-bye!